The U.S.-Israel relationship is taking a hit, and it's crazy because this has never happened to this extent. I'm going to go through everything that is happening between the U.S. and Israel before Trump visits Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar this week without visiting Israel, which I'm very surprised about. So first of all, Trump seems to be very angry with Netanyahu because he's realizing that he doesn't want peace and he doesn't want to release the hostages because he's delaying everything. And for Netanyahu, he wants to delay things because the hostages being there and not released gives him more of a power to invade and permanently hold Gaza until a foreseeable future where all the hostages are released. By the way, the only way that the hostages were released in the past were through negotiation. But Netanyahu doesn't want to do negotiation. He wants to annex Gaza, resettle Gaza, so have Israelis come to Gaza and build these settlements, which is a war crime and illegal under international law. Trump is on to Netanyahu now that he wants this. So he's basically said, I'm tired of waiting for you to make decisions. I am going to go ahead and make those decisions for the benefit of the U.S. and not Israel. Now, this doesn't usually happen. Usually, when it comes to Israel and its surrounding neighbors, the U.S. takes the stance of Israel. But not with Trump. Trump is, number one, he's actually made a deal with the Houthis in Yemen, who were attacking Israel and also, to some extent, attacking some trading ships going through that region, near Yemen to Egypt. So he's actually made a truce with them. And this is crazy for them. The U.S. will stop attacking the Houthis if the Houthis stop attacking those trading routes. Nothing to do with Israel, which is insane. In fact, the next day that this agreement came into place, the Houthis sent missiles to Israel. One of them nearly landed in the Ben Gurion airport. So it's insane that Trump isn't even taking into consideration Israel, isn't even informing Israel that he made that deal. Netanyahu was just found himself whining about it like everyone else. The second thing is that Trump actually wants to negotiate and wants to make a deal with Iran. In spite of Israel telling him not to negotiate and to join them in attacking Iran, Trump's like, no, I don't want to attack Iran. I want to see if we can get into a negotiation, into a peace deal. And that's infuriating the Israelis because they do not want a peace deal with Iran. They want the U.S. to join them and have a full-scale war with Iran. The third is that Trump is, not Trump himself, but his government is actually having direct talks with Hamas in Qatar, bypassing the Israelis completely. And that has actually this actually has resulted in the release of the only American-Israeli hostage left in Gaza. He's going to be released today. And he did that completely without the Israelis' involvement because he knows now that the Israelis are not interested in peace or releasing the hostages as a number one priority. And there's even talks that he is going to force a ceasefire. He's forcing humanitarian aid now to enter, and he's going to force a ceasefire, which would be very interesting to see because, again, the Israelis do not want a ceasefire. They want to continue the war crimes that they've been committing and take Gaza for themselves and resettle it. Another thing that's happening, which is crazy, is that Trump is going to, apparently, on his visit this week to Saudi Arabia, going to allow Saudi Arabia to build their nuclear capability. Now, this is not in relation to missiles, but in terms of energy. Biden, the previous government, had one condition to allow the Saudis to build their nuclear capability, which is to normalize relations with Israel. But Saudi Arabia is saying, we can't normalize our relationship with Israel, given what they're doing in Gaza. And everyone's looking at what Israel's doing in Gaza. It's not a secret anymore. Everyone's filming it. Their leaders talked about what they want to do, and they've done a lot of it. So for the first time, everyone's seeing, with no filter, what the Israelis have done. 70% of buildings destroyed. 90% of the population being homeless. There's no war in modern history that has resulted in 90% of the population of a whole state being made homeless in less than a year. That's insanity that's still being allowed to continue. But Trump has just ignored that requirement that Biden had and is saying that you don't have to normalize your relationship with Israel. We're going to help you build nuclear capability. We're going to sell you a lot more weapons. It's crazy. He's just bypassing the Israelis. Now, there is a lot of talk that Trump, these are rumors, unverified rumors, which I do not believe, that Trump might even recognize Palestine as a country. I don't think that's going to happen. That's a bit too far in this reality. But we know that France and likely the UK are going to recognize Palestine. There's a lot of other countries that do recognize Palestine as a country, but the US has never recognized it unless Israel recognizes it, and Israel obviously is not going to recognize it either now or in the future. So there might be a lot of pressure from Trump pushing, the Israelis to accept the ceasefire, to move forward towards peace. Let's see how that turns around. The other weird thing that's happening is Trump is accepting a jumbo jet from the Qataris to replace his Air Force One. They're working on the deal to accept it. It's apparently going to be worth $400 million, that plane, which would be crazy. He's really cushioning up to the Gulf states. I imagine because he wants to have a lot of investment come from the Gulf states to the U.S. And Trump is a deals guy, as they say. And so he's focused on money. Where is the money? Well, a lot of the money is in the Gulf states. It's not in Israel, right? It's in the Gulf states. So he wants a lot of those investments. Between Saudi Arabia and the UAE, they've already said they're going to invest more than $1 trillion over 10 years in the U.S. I think he's going to go there and actually at least, he might even double that amount. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens on his visit this week to the Gulf state, Saudi Arabia, UAE, and Qatar, which, a lot of Israelis see Qatar as a terrorist state. So it's very interesting that he's actually visiting Qatar. So let's see what comes out of that. Do follow us or subscribe. We'll go through a whole review of the announcements that he is going to be making very soon. Have an awesome day.